Welcome to Tales from SYL Ranch Live, where everyone is entitled to my opinion, and I'm Bill Stone. Tonight on Tales from SYL Ranch, we will have the weekly current Lancaster County, Nebraska virus statistics report for where I live. We will talk, sadly, we are sort of having to talk about the Boulder, Colorado mass shooting that took place this last weekend. We will have a review of Superman and Lois, Season 1, Episode 5, The Best of Smallville. We will have the Woke Report, in which we will particularly be talking about muckraker Meg Dowell and her baseless attacks on various popular fanish YouTube channels, and pretty much else, anything you want to think about. Now, this is a live stream, and ordinarily I would invite viewers to call in. However, I have a lot going on, and technically and in terms of my content, so I'm not going to do that tonight. However, we will handle things through chat. Now, you're going to have to bear with me a moment because, hey, welcome to my Twitch viewers. This is the first time that I'm simul-streaming to both YouTube and Twitch. So I'm having to do a few things a little bit differently than I'd want to, and one of those is that I can't, unfortunately, so far, I haven't quite figured out how I can set up both of my chat streams simultaneously. So I'm going to, hang on a minute, I got to find my frickin' live thing here. This is what happens. I set up testing that I did a bit earlier today, but and yesterday or the day before, but unfortunately, I can't seem to just schedule things inside of both Twitch and YouTube that I can simultaneously restream to. So I'm having to do some workarounds for that, particularly with regards to chat. So if you'll bear with me for a moment, I will free associate with you here while I get my chat out and get things working. So just a bit of explanation about what my show is for those of you on Twitch who are new here, which hopefully I'll be able to find my chat for. Excuse me, Twitch, where's my chat? Hey, Beavis, where's my chat? There you are. I'll pop my chat out here. Chat. Pop it out. Again, apologies. I simply have to do this sort of on the fly, so it kind of sucks. I will switch over to my thing where I'm going to have to change everything about my chat. Thank you oh so much, YouTube, for not allowing me to be able to do all this very easily in advance. Chats, it's a little bit easier with Twitch. Ordinarily, I'm a little bit more professional than this, but I've got to set things on here. So that's my Twitch chat, yes. And now I'll put in my YouTube chat. And you are going to be this one. Who the hell are you? This one. Okay. So, and I'm going to change things around here a bit so that people can actually see my chat in both of them at the same time, hopefully on more or less the same side. And well, hopefully that will keep itself doing that even after I change cards. So let me do this here and get my chat set up. Again, my apologies. This is something that, because of the way that Twitch seems to work, it's really difficult for me to set up in advance. So let me throw my chat window, oops, wrong window, well, wrong layer. You would be surprised at what I have to do in order to get things to work correctly, the number of layers that I have to do. All right, so now I have my chat. Let's see what Marshall has to say. Twitch in live stream is confined online. Hey, I'm not sure what that means. First comment on my channel. Hey, YouTube started streaming now. Yes. Color gradient is wildly different between the two. Twitch is soft white. YouTube is very hot color. Oh, man, there's only so much I can do when it comes to that. I've got things set up on my on OBS software, and there's only so much I can do. So I'm sorry about that. For those of you who are watching on different ones, I've got different types of things happening, so my apologies. And I have to have a monitor up here so that I can, oops, see what I can do, see what I'm doing here in my actual channel. Again, the main problem here is that I can't seem to figure out how to get Twitch and YouTube things to be set up so that they're scheduled Used to be able to do that when I was just doing YouTube, but with Twitch it doesn't seem to be possible, so I'm kind of having to do things a bit on the fly. So sorry about this, what you're seeing there in terms of differing types of things. I can see what you're talking about, Marshall, and the things I've got going on here. So, oh well, what can I do? Anyway, to explain my show a bit for new viewers, I am one of those guys who wanted very much to just be talking about science fiction, fantasy, horror, superheroes, and other related genres. And I discovered that, unfortunately, the woke are making that just about impossible, because there is no escaping the woke. And I'm going to have a big thing to talk about that later tonight when I talk about the woke report and what is happening in some of the fanish space with regard to that. Not me, because I'm not the one they're hitting, but, you know, they've got somebody else. So I have a fair amount of stuff that is political related, because I'm a political libertarian. And that means that I believe that no human being has the right, under any circumstances, to initiate force against another human being, nor to threaten or delegate its initiation. This is different from being a pacifist. It's also different from being a conservative or a liberal. Sometimes we libertarians tend to find ourselves kind of straddling the fence on both of them. These days, not so much. But we're often described as the pro-gun, pro-weed guys, and it's sort of a shorthand way to think of us. So I have a little different to say, some things from a little bit of a different perspective than a lot of people. So you'll hear me talking about things from a libertarian perspective that you might not otherwise see. Other than that, I do like to talk about science fiction, fantasy, horror, superhero, and other related genres. I will oftentimes do a review towards the middle of any given stream to try to break things up. I am trying as much as possible, because of the way views work over on BitChute, to get my reviews pulled out as individual videos, but unfortunately what keeps happening is the real world keeps interfering, and I'm not able to do it maybe the way I'd like. What will happen, however, is I will pull those out as clips, and they will appear in my largely I'm going to be concentrating very, very heavily over on BitChute, because they don't screw with me as they do with YouTube, because YouTube doesn't like people with my kind of political sensibilities. They would like to see us just gone. So YouTube delay is approximately 5 seconds behind the Twitch stream. Well, that's useful to know. Right now I'm doing the restreaming through restream.io. I can set up, and may very well set up, depending on what I can find out about it, whether it's good or not. I may set up my own Nginx server. I'm kind of trying to stay away from that just a little bit for various reasons. But it looks like there may be no good reason not to, because of the way scheduling works. So I don't know. I'll probably change it by next week. It's an ongoing process, as anybody who's watched my show for very long knows. It is an ongoing process. It is always an ongoing learning experience for me. So Restream is probably just doing me about 5 seconds behind. So anyway, in chat here, as I'm doing sort of straddling both sides of the fence in the Fanish world and in the world of politics. And by the way, in the Fanish world, I'm a little bit different. I am 56 years old, making me exceptionally elderly, but that also means I have been in fandom for quite a long time. I have watched, read, and listened to over 100 years worth of science fiction. Went to my first science fiction Star Trek convention in, I want to say 1975. So I've been with this for quite a long time. I have reached the level, and if you reach this level, you will know when you reach it. I have reached a level where we kind of think of ourselves as secret masters of fandom. I know quite a lot about fandom. I've done a lot of research about it almost 100 years back now. You'll occasionally hear me say things like, I don't know, you may hear me refer to Gu, Ghu, which is a Fanish god created in the 1930s. And things like that. I don't usually swear on the show. I like to make it as much, family friendly as I humanly can. But you can certainly feel free to ask me any question in chat that you want to. That's political, social, the virus whose name I can't mention. Because on YouTube, it'll get my channel banned or my videos ranked even lower than they already are. You can talk to me about Civil War II in the United States, or even things related to science fiction, fantasy, horror, superheroes, and other related genres. I am always happy to answer each and every question in as much detail and as truthfully as I can. There are some subjects that I won't talk about because they're personal, but pretty much anything else is fair game. I will take as many viewers as I can with the understanding that I don't want my stream to go much longer than 3 hours. And that's because I am an old man and I have lower back arthritis, and 3 or so hours in this chair is about all I can take before I need to go sit in the comfy chair to keep my back from completely falling apart on me. So again, every time I switch to something new, you're going to have to sit through me moving around my chat windows, I think. So, to answer the question that no one asked, what are this week's weekly virus statistics for Lancaster County, Nebraska? Let me move my chats around because it sucks that and I grabbed the wrong thing. I can't do this in advance, amazingly enough. It just won't let me do it in advance, and it sucks. It really sucks. The way that doing these operates is that Twitch really doesn't... Dang it, I keep grabbing the wrong element. See if I can grab the right one. Twitch does not really allow me to schedule... Dang it, I grabbed the wrong element. Again, I'm sorry. Got to watch where the little red lines are. And then we'll slide you a little smaller so that you're about the same size because life sucks. Anyway, I'm going to answer the question that no one asked, which is, Marshall is saying 1.9 million in dollar machine printing isn't enough, apparently. They're pushing for 3 trillion to get more this year. Get into assets now, not financial advice. Yes, well, the federal government is bankrupt, has been my whole life. At some point, I always say we are more in debt. This country is more in debt in terms of the public debt than any other nation in human history. In fact, if you added up the debt from every nation in human history, 4,000 years or more, you're going to discover that our public debt is larger. It is more money than exists in the United States. If you add unfunded liabilities, it gets into the 100 trillion plus range, and that's more money than exists in the world. At some point, and I don't know when, I thought it was going to be before now, but at some point, things are going to come and going to come bite us in the ass. Hi, over on my YouTube side. Sorry about this. TDG, hey, nice to see you. 56 is not old, dude. I don't think so either. But I have noticed that particularly when you're dealing with streaming, people tend to, the streaming and any really video channel tends to attract a younger audience, and beyond a certain point we look really, really old. So I am Gen X, for those of you who might say okay boomer. Most of you who would say that, by the way, don't know what you're talking about. Boomers are starting to get into their 70s now. Those of us who are Gen X, like me, early Gen X, look like this. Anyway, the weekly virus reports for Lancaster County, Nebraska, which is the answer to the question that crap. Now I screwed up my poor. Sorry, I screwed up my poor man's teleprompter. I always like to source these. This is for Lancaster County where I live. I source it. It's not currently in my description box on YouTube because it won't let me do that until after the stream, but it will be. And that is going to be the fact that it's from a Lancaster County Health Department. So the total Lancaster County population remains relatively constant at 324,216. Total number of positive tests in Lancaster County is 29,292, which is up 327 from last week. This continues a downward trend of increasing. Yes, we're getting more cases, but the trend in terms of increases is going down. It is, however, statistically the same type of increase as last week. The total number of completed vaccinations is now at 71,107. That means that they've gone through both batteries of the vaccine and considered done. This is up 7,386 from last week. The percentage of population that has therefore been vaccinated is about 15.763%, which is up 2.425% from last week. Given, however, the general rates and trends that we have seen of this virus in my county, the vaccine is having absolutely no effect whatsoever. The trends were the same before, and they're the same now. Total number of Lancaster County deaths is 224, which is a 0 increase from last week. The deaths as a percentage of positive cases is 0.765%, which is actually down 0.008% from last week. It is a tiny drop and statistically identical to the last week. Deaths as a percentage of population continues to be 0.6909%, no change from last week because we'd had no change in deaths, and is statistically identical to the rest of the entire pandemic. It is less than 0.69% of people in Lancaster County have died from this. Now, yes, I'm only 5.6 years old in deca years, Marshall says. Yes, I'm still older than most of the people who'd be watching me. I'm going to start giving out a new statistic that I got this week. And oh my God, you'd be surprised. You'd be amazed how difficult it was to get this. You'd think getting this statistic would be easy. Go to a website and find it. But no, I couldn't find it on the website. You'd think that, okay, I'll just make a quick phone call to the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department to get it. No, I didn't do that because I guess most of them are now telecommuting, and they couldn't just pass me off from one person to another via, on hold. First, they sent me to the IT help desk, which I didn't get. Then they sent me to somebody who didn't know the answer but could give me the phone number to somebody they thought would know the answer. And finally, I called that person who thought they knew the answer, and they did. So I'm putting up as a comparison here the number of people in Lancaster County, Nebraska who died of heart disease in 2019. Now, I'm using 2019 because I know from 2020 on, some of these 224 deaths that are counted as virus deaths, sorry, YouTube, I mentioned it by name, virus deaths are actually deaths by other means that have been classified as virus deaths. But we don't know how much they are, so I've just gone with the official figure. Well, in 2019, 485 people died of heart disease in Lancaster County. That means that over about 1.25 years, the number of people who died of the virus is less than half of the number who died of heart disease in 2019. That is how little a problem it is. More people had heart attacks in 2019 than died of this virus over its entire course of the pandemic so far. We have no problem whatsoever. What really bothers me is how our press is reporting this, and one of my regular viewers on the YouTube side, who I hope is able to come in and find the stream tonight, was mentioning to me that this individual's husband had thought that the number was in the thousands. That's how much our press is overblowing this. Not only that, they also misreport on how many cases that we have in hospitals. We have about 4 hospitals, I think, in our area, and they're saying, oh, this is all stressing it out, and we can't maintain it, it's horrible and awful, and all kinds of evil, nasty things. And it turns out that when you talk to your healthcare professionals, our hospitals are essentially empty of virus patients. Thing is, my parents were both in the healthcare field, and I grew up with that, so I kind of speak that lingo. So when I get into, for like my, usual every 3-month checkups, because I got the diabetes, when I get in for those checkups, I can speak their language, and so I'm reasonably bright. Know about my condition and how to treat it and all that. So they will open up to me maybe a little bit more than they would the average patient, and they tell me outright, oh yeah, our hospitals where we go, they're just empty. They're just empty. There's nobody there. Totally empty. But our press is talking about it and just lying. They are total sensationalists. So that is why, by the way, you have behind me an empty hospital ward, because that represents the number of people who are actually having a problem in Lancaster County, Nebraska. In fact, I had occasion over the week to do some additional calculations for Omaha, Nebraska, and they actually have a lower population per death percentage than we do, despite the fact that it's a metro area of 1 million people, and we're only a metro area of 324,000. I happened to do some for St. Louis, which is also larger. Guess what? It's not a problem in any of those places either. Not a problem at all. And yet we're being told that it's horrible and terrible and all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly things. So don't listen to your press so much, and I'm going to talk about that more in a moment as well. Don't listen to the press because they're mostly just sensationalizing. So I will have to move around my freaking chats again. Ooh, I grabbed the wrong element. And this is Twitch. And I'm putting them over here because I have some stuff going on later where I'm going to put some things and see that size is different. A wrong element. I apologize. This is me trying to be a professional and not coming off well at it. Anyhow, I'm going to have to talk about the Boulder, Colorado mass shooting. It's on everybody's to talk about list. What's happened there in that mass shooting is one, the suspect has been identified, not surprisingly, as one Ahmed Alawi Alisa. He murdered 10 people in the King Super grocery store in Boulder, Colorado. That is all we know. In reality, that is everything that we know at this point, other than he was arraigned this morning. You know, the press went on, we went before a judge for the first time. Yes, he was arraigned. You know, that's where they take you in. And they ask they say to the prosecution, do you have enough? Geez, I bopped online, offline, according to my, oh, well, I'm going to worry about it. They say, hey, do you have enough, evidence to take this guy to court? And it's a foregone conclusion. Of course, they have the evidence to take this guy. So he was there for like 5 minutes, and they were like, well, I think we're holding you without bail. What a shock. Anyway, that's all we know. That is literally everything that we know at this point. Anyone who talks about this individual and talks about his any of what might be the reason that he did it, they're just talking out of their ass. They don't know. Nothing's been released from the police like that, and it won't be. Anytime you hear him talking about just about anything with respect to this, other than this guy's mugshot, his age, things like that, they know nothing else. Literally nothing else. Not the slightest damned thing. They know nothing. And nowhere was this driven more home this week, because I always say, nothing you see in the press is real. Nothing. And it scrolls past in my lower third in every single one of my videos. Nothing you see in the press is real. Nothing. And I say this because, and this is largely for the benefit more of my new Twitch viewers, for 41 years now, I have engaged in a very masochistic hobby of debunking the press. It has gotten to the point where if you give me any story from any source, in about 30 minutes, sometimes less, I can do one of three things. I can prove that the event never happened, that it didn't happen as reported, or that when you strip away a slick interface, opinion, emotionally loaded language, you generally wind up with maybe a couple of paragraphs of actual fact. In fact, it's an ongoing challenge. Any of my viewers that want me to do this, I will. If you want me to debunk something, all you have to do, send me a story. It needs to be print so that I can put it up in this corner and, kind of show you things as I'm going through. But I'll debunk it live. I will not read the story in advance. I will do it right here before your very eyes. The last time I did it, I debunked a weather report. That's how bad these guys are. Mostly they're propagandists, but even when they're not propagandizing, they couldn't get the story right if it was about getting a cat, the fire department getting a cat out of the tree down 3 blocks down from you. They couldn't get it right. They're not even trying to get it right. And most of the time, they're intentionally sensationalizing, or they are intentionally propagandizing. We have seen a lot of propagandizing in the last 4 years. It is, in fact, my opinion that had the press not been propagandizing for the last 4 years, and in the process, driving one half of my countrymen literally mentally ill, Donald Trump probably would have won, and he would have won fairly handily. He may have won anyway. We don't really know. This last election is very impossible to tell. But regardless, I think there would have been no question, except that the press had been propagandizing against him for 4 straight years. That's what they do. Also, a little personal anecdote. One of my first or second girlfriend from college, she went on to become a news anchor. In fact, she covered the Columbine massacre in Colorado for ABC television. And I didn't really keep much track of her, occasionally out of curiosity because, she was a news anchor in front of the camera. I looked her up from time to time, just Googled her. Well, unfortunately, female news anchors don't have the same shelf life as male ones. You have to keep up your physical appearance. You can't look too old. And when you do, as a female, you're just done. You're just done. Men can go on to have a fairly long career, but women just forget it. It's all about your appearance in front of the camera. So I would be I looked her up one time, and after it was over for her in broadcasting, she went on to marketing, basically propagandizing. See, that tells you a lot. If you look at a lot of these people, a lot of reporters, when they can't do it anymore in reporting, they go on to be marketers. That should tell you a lot. Where I get my news, and I suggest that everyone does, I get my news from a couple of different places. One is by listening to first responder frequencies, and oh my God, did that pay off during the King Soopers mass shooting. I'll talk about that in a second. I do that in one of two ways. Either you can go to broadcastify.com, scrolling past on my lower third, or you can download the Scanner Radio application for Android or iOS. And I also watch live streams coming from on the ground by people who are there just pointing their cameras and shutting up. I don't want to see generally what the news is showing unless maybe it's a helicopter view. An overview of what we're seeing. Sometimes that's useful, but even if I'm watching somebody doing the reporting like I did during this one, I mute them because all they're ever doing is free associating. They had some people on there this time whom they were interviewing as supposed witnesses who were not witnesses because I watched and I listened on the first responder frequencies. They got all of the people who could be remotely resembling witnesses and carted them off to the police station and tried to separate them out from everybody else, including themselves, so that they could get them as good witnesses. The problem with witnesses is that they tend to talk to each other, or they talk to other people. So say there were two shots, right? Well, two witnesses may have heard two shots, and they'll talk to each other and get themselves convinced that there were actually 4 shots involved. So what the police always try to do is they get real witnesses the hell away from the press, that's for sure, and hopefully away from each other so that they can't convince themselves of something that happened that didn't. So I was listening to the live stream. They're listening to, my Scanner Radio application on my handheld. And I knew for a fact that all the real witnesses had been carted off at least an hour before they started interviewing supposed witnesses who happened to be across the street or 2 blocks away and heard something. You just mute the damned audio. They're useless. They're utterly useless. Drop Truth, nice to see you tonight. You're saying, you're in from Australia. Drop Truth is one of my longtime viewers. Always love to have you in. Who is from Australia. Great to always have your input in terms of things that are going on there. You're saying you're 56. Sometimes you do feel old. I feel old occasionally because of my lower back, but if I do the right kind of exercise, it's not so much an issue. During the lockdowns, it's becoming more of an issue because all of our gyms are closed. TDG says, you're 2 months younger than Star Trek. I am about 2 years older than Star Trek. 1 year older than Star Trek. 1 year younger than Star Trek. And my very first memory, is of the Magatu in A Private Little War. That's literally my very first memory. If you watch my end credits, you will see that I credit to the Magatu. There are 2 reasons for this. Well, one is of my first memory ever. And the other, frankly, is for my sometimes producer, J. Marshall Presnell, who's on the Twitch side tonight. And he has had a nickname in fandom for some time, the Echo Magatu. So it's partially in thanks to him and the work he's helped me do on this show. Yes, and I am simul-streaming on Twitch as well. I'm going to be doing that for the foreseeable future. I am having some issues with that you'll see as I go along here. Hopefully those will disappear as time goes by. Drop 2 says you're 2 years older than Star Trek and 2 years younger than William Hartnell's Doctor Who's first appearance. Cool. And yes, live long and prosper to all of you. Hey, marketing coordinator, nice to see you here tonight as well. So, as I say, don't pay attention to the press. They're utterly useless, even in the best of times. Listen to first responder frequencies. Listen to watch live streams on the ground. Don't watch the regular news, and if you're going to, mute it. Just mute it. And wait around for a helicopter shot, because that's the most interesting. The only thing of note that a local Denver station that I was watching got was when they did a helicopter shot when they were marching the perp away right after he'd been arrested. That was the first view we'd seen of him. And that was the only useful thing that they had the entire time. While the entire incident was going down, they were not paying attention to the police scanners, and that was amazing. This was a really strange one. Ordinarily, when something like this goes down, or anything even remotely resembling it goes down, the police try to get onto an unencrypted frequency. An encrypted frequency, rather, so that Joe Average can't be listening in, so that the perpetrator couldn't be listening in and just figuring out what they're doing. Never did that. This whole thing was live on an unencrypted frequency. I got to listen to everything as it went down. And the press was not paying attention to it. They didn't report a damned thing, near as I can tell. They didn't report anything that was actually happening. All they did was free associate. And that's all they ever do, is just sit there and free associate. They have a couple of anchors sitting there, or a reporter standing outside with an earpiece in, with their producer saying, we got this fact or not, we have this fact or not. Well, they had no real facts the entire time. So they just sat there and free associated about what they were seeing. And they free associated about this, free associated about that, but there's no real information. The only real information that we have is the suspect's name. You can see what he looks like. You can find out vital statistics about him. And you can see that he went to court today for his arraignment. And that is all. That's all we really know about him. And if anybody tells you different, they are speculating or they're just lying. We know nothing about him. We know nothing about him. That's all we know. But if you really wanted to hear what was going on, this time was fascinating because that damn thing was there real time on. You could listen to it on broadcastify.com. You could listen to it on my Scanner Radio application that you can get for your phone or your tablet, any mobile device, any operating system. It was awesome. That was a really strange one. Sitting there listening to exactly what was going down was pretty amazing. They don't usually do that. And actually, at one point they tried. But if you watched, you discovered that at one point I counted over 100 vehicles visible from various shots. They had this basic supermarket area on a map if you looked. And that's another thing you can do. Look at Google Maps to geolocate what's happening. Look at the street view to see if you can, kind of figure things out. And what the police had done, not surprisingly, it was a small, shopping mall area with this grocery store in it. Well, they'd cordon off the whole thing. But this is such an unheard of event, this kind of mass shooting there with 10 people murdered, that they had every single vehicle from the police out there. They had at least 4 SWAT teams. I counted over 100 vehicles from various angles. They had the county sheriff out. They had at least one Denver suburb. I've been to Boulder. It's far enough west of Denver that it's not really a suburb, but it's close enough that it's, maybe half an hour's drive from the farthest western suburb. Haven't been there in over 10 years, so I'm not sure anymore. When I was doing it, that was what it was. Whole thing. And they tried to get on an unencrypted frequency once, but by that time they had so many individuals out there that they couldn't really figure out where to flip, what frequency to use without impeding the whole thing that they were trying to do. So you have to listen to it all live on an unencrypted frequency. The only place that I'm aware that happens with any regularity is when they have riots of some kind in Chicago. Chicago has a whole frequency devoted just to riots. It is their riot frequency. My kids used to live in suburban Chicago, so I paid some attention to that. It's their whole riot frequency. They're the only ones I know about that are consistently not going to an encrypted channel. So listening to Scanner Radio was invaluable in this case. I got to hear about everything that was really happening as opposed to the free associating that your average reporter is doing. So let's see. Let's see if I can drop Tuesday asking market coordinator, got your Gab channel sorted yet? Yeah, I'm on Gab as well. I unfortunately don't have it in any description boxes, but you can look for me at gab.com. I believe it's just SYL Ranch there. I try to get SYL Ranch at every place. The only place I don't think I'm SYL Ranch is on Twitter, because I used to be SYL Ranch, but then they killed that account for reasons that they never made clear. And for reasons that I can't understand. All they said was I was trying to manipulate the hashtags. I'm like, well, I always put hashtags in my marketing copy, ad copy, that relate to my stream. I don't know how that's manipulating hashtags particularly. Anyhow, I'm not SYL Ranch there, but on virtually every social media known to man. You can find me there. My group on Facebook, which I hate using, is facebook.com/tales Tales from SYL Ranch. One word, because I couldn't get SYL Ranch. But everywhere else, just about everywhere else, I'm SYL Ranch. Twitter is SYL Tales. So, yes, international press is also useless. As I say, I have an ongoing challenge. Give me any news source, any news item from any news source. And again, it kind of needs to be print so that I can show it more easily here. But any story whatsoever, I'll debunk it live without reading it. I've gotten so damn good at it over the last 41 years of doing it. Marketing Coordinator says, don't worry about issues. Trump's warp speed vax will end them all. Oh, I don't know. I don't think that the entire thing is even much of an issue most places. Where I'm at, it's not an issue. Less than half of the number of people who died of heart disease in my county in 2019 have died of this virus. The key infection vectors, because infection vectors matter, the key infection vectors from this study I've done of other places in the Midwest appear to be population density and seaports. If you have a high population density and lots of seaports, you're in trouble. That's why New York City is so badly hit. That's why LA is worse than where I'm at. But you get out to the Midwest, like Nebraska, where I am, landlocked, not even so much as an international airport in Nebraska. And where we are, the population density, we're not constrained by geography. We as the city grows, we just grow outwards in all directions. So we're not building up, we're just building out. So even in a city of 324,000, we don't have anything like that population density. So we really don't have a problem here. Let's see what we've got over here. Drop 2 says, Bill, the video is sharp and stable and the audio is crystal clear on Firefox. Cool. Streaming app is working great. Well, it's not mine. I'm just broadcasting simultaneously to YouTube and Twitch. So with heavy emphasis on Twitch going forward, because YouTube has been a suckage platform for me and continues to be. Let's see. Drop 2 says, anchors are wankers. I'll go with the latter. We have the same leftist sock puppets here in Australia, too. I'll be talking about that sort of in a moment. Marketing Coordinator says, dialectic event to keep people distracted. See Sandy Hook for details. I don't know. I think you get something like this, and I think it's perfectly real. We just don't know why. Not really. Why is Trump urging people to take the vaccines? Well, I think that I'm not taking it. I don't think it's reasonable for me to take it. I am on a number of medications. And one of the things that I have a background in, because I was in computer science for 40 years, is science. And when I look at these vaccines, they do not appear to have gone through the same sort of rigorous scientific testing that everything else in the universe does. They couldn't have and get pushed out the door this fast. So it seems to me that the American public, the world public, has now become the clinical trials. Because it didn't go through all of the science, we don't know what its actual efficacy is in a large population, and we don't know what the side effects are. And for me, the side effects are very important. I'm on a number of different life-saving medications. The last thing that I want is for there to be a negative interaction between the drugs. That would be bad, okay? And my doctor entirely agrees with me. She does not believe I should be taking this. I have a very close relative who's rather elderly. For her, it makes some more sense. She's not on the same kind of medications that I am, and it hasn't had any adverse interactions. We don't go in for the second vaccine until Monday. But for some people, it's worth it. I'm sure that, as somebody who is kind of a politician still, urging people to do the thing that would maybe protect them. I don't know. That's all. Marketing Coordinator, come to MeWe, and I will set you free. My personal account on MeWe is WR Stone. Oddly enough, I don't think they give group names for that. But I do have a group there for Tales from SYL Ranch. I market to MeWe. I market to, who do I market to? Let me just give you a listing of everybody I market, which social media platforms. Subscribestar. I have a Subscribestar, SYL Ranch. Feel free to go there and donate to me. MeWe, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Minds, Gab, Parler, Telegram, and Tumblr. I do all of those, generally with SYL Ranch, because I want to have that as a brand. Drop 2 says modern journalism equals regurgitation of Reuters and Associated Press. Both are owned by the Rockefellers. K-surprise. Yeah. If you look at our local newspaper, there's very little that's actually written by local reporters. There's no question about that. City of 324,000, and they can't find any stories in any given day. Art Tenemal, how you doing tonight? Tested medication on military members in Desert Storm, and the VA doesn't recognize Gulf War syndrome. Yeah. Well, the VA, near as I can tell, is just a load of quacks. Just a load of quacks. Marshall's saying the next time I record the scanner chat. Oh, yeah, I should have. I really should have. Because scanner radio, if you get the pro version like I do, that's the difference between the pro and the non-pro versions, is you can record it. And I didn't think to. I really wish I had, it would have been very long. The whole thing, was 2 to 3 hours long. But oh my God, it was amazing to listen to. Just amazing. So the other thing that always comes up, speaking about the VA, I have veteran friends, particularly one in particular, who has, severe anxiety issues, and all they did with him was prescribe a box of opiates. I mean, a box. He had a shoe box filled with, mostly opiates, hydrocodone, OxyContin, sticking all this crap all at once. He knew it was bad for him. Bunch of freaking quacks over there. What he started doing was taking what is in that state an illegal substance that is legal in South Dakota and Colorado, north and south of me. And that seemed to resolve most of his issues. I'm not saying it would for everybody, but it seemed to resolve his, and it got him off of what I know are very, very addictive opiates. So, yeah, I think, honestly, the VA is just a load of quacks. If you really have a problem, if you're a veteran, don't go there. Go to your family doctor, even if you have to pay more for it, even if it puts you in the poorhouse. Go there. The VA sucks. Let's see. Marketing coordinator is saying, did you know that Fauci owns half of the Moderna patent that Trump funded $500 million? I didn't know that, but again, for me, I just watch this and I go, this thing couldn't possibly have gone through the necessary, double-blind studies, rigorous clinical trials, various clinical trials, and get out the door in the time that it did. It has to have just kind of gone out. And to me, that means we don't know the efficacy, not really, and we don't know what the side effects are. Side effects are a big deal to me because of the medications I'm on. Drop 2 says, studies been done in Australia and Europe, and they've noticed that those who have taken the mRNA vax have had their antibody percentage reduced to nearly zero. Nothing surprises me. This did not go through the proper and rigorous scientific testing necessary for this to be known in terms of the efficacy and the side effects. You leave that part of the science out, you're going to wind up with things that you didn't expect. Ain't going to happen to me. One of the things that you cannot possibly get around when talking about the murders that happened in Boulder is, of course, the moment that it happened, people were not even waiting for the entire thing to be finished. They were not waiting for it to, for the victims' family to know that they were victims. They were not waiting for the bodies to be cold before everybody started politicizing the thing. Man, people are sick. Just for God's sake, all we know, as I've said, is, details about the suspect and the fact that he was arraigned today. That's all we know. You can't go and say, oh, he was Middle Eastern, it must have been a terrorism thing. No, we don't know. You can't say, oh, it was a gun control issue, it was this, he did this because of that. No, we don't know. We don't know anything. We know nothing. It's too early. We don't know crap. Just forget about it. But of course, the biggest thing that we hear calls for is more gun control, or as we libertarians call it more correctly, victim disarmament, because that's what it is. You want to know, Colorado is an open carry state. It is a carry state. Guess who didn't allow carry where this happened? That would be in this grocery store. They don't allow it. It is my considered opinion that most of the time when these things happen, if people had been allowed to protect themselves, as is their natural right, as is guaranteed to them in the Constitution, most of these things wouldn't even happen. Because your average perpetrator who isn't insane, if they're not insane, would see it and go, oh, there's no way I'm going to survive this attempt. Not because I'm going to die by cop, but because I'm going to die when an unknown number of people in the area that I'm shooting are going to get a bead on me and take me out. There is a great political cartoon done by a wonderful libertarian political cartoonist, Scott Beezer, and I didn't put it up. I probably should have. It's his 9/11 cartoon. If people had not been unconstitutionally stripped of their weapons on airplanes, I don't think that those hijackers would even have tried. They would have known it would have been futile, and they would have died in a hail of gunfire from an unknown number of people from unknown directions. They wouldn't even have tried. We would not have had the Twin Towers fall had it not been for victim disarmament. And the harder that you make it for people who really need it to get them, the more violence you get. I am fond of saying a victim disarmer is a person who would rather see a woman raped, strangled to death with her own pantyhose, and her body dumped in an alley, rather than see her with a gun in her hand. A couple of pounds of lead and steel equalizes a 120-pound woman against a 200-pound attacker. And that is a reality. The harder that you make it for people like that to get weapons to protect themselves, the more violence you're going to have. And what victim disarmers, again, we use the proper term, what victim disarmers cannot ever answer is the simple question. Criminals don't obey the law. How are you going to make them? No one will answer that. They completely gloss over it. They're like, well, we'll just get guns, take them all away from everywhere. Like, no, you're not going to do that for a very simple scientific reason. The science that goes into making guns is really old and really well known and underpins all kinds of other things. If you actually managed, and they couldn't, there would be shooting war over it, but if you actually managed to confiscate every gun currently in the United States, well, we'd see them on the black market. Your average gangbanger isn't going into a gun store to buy their stuff. They're getting it on the black market as it is. We just see a rise in the black market at best. At worst, we'd have a shooting war over it because people like me are not going to give up our guns. It's just that simple. So you can't get rid of them forever, everywhere. That's impossible. That is literally, physically impossible. So, what's the answer to the question? How do you force criminals who do not obey the law to obey gun laws? The answer is you can't. And as long as you can't do that, I am not going to give up my protection. Nor do I think that you should be making young women into targets by taking away their protection. The criminal will be able to get her. She will have no defense. You give her a couple of pounds of lead and steel in her purse, and she has the ability to fight off an attacker, preferably kill him. So we don't need more victim disarmament over this. We need less. There's a great book by Dr. John Lott, who is a statistician, called More Guns, Less Crime. And it's in its about 10th or 12th edition now, because he updates it from time to time. He took decades worth of FBI statistics, and it's a very dry book. I have it. It's mostly just, talking through statistics and things. Very dry book. And if you read it, the statistical conclusions that he puts out are obvious, and he was pro-victim disarmament before he wrote the book, before he did the study. And he discovered that any state that enacts a concealed carry law sees their crime drop, while any surrounding state that does not have a concealed carry law sees their crime increase. The reason for that is very simple. Your bad guy says, oh, I might get killed in the commission of my crime in this state. I'm going to go over there where there are already victims. You don't disarm victims. You only cause more violence when you do that. Let me take a look here. Hey, Dalton and Poofy Face Damas. Rating with a party of one. Hey, cool. Let's see. Over on my Twitter. It's Dalton, sorry you're late. Not your fault. I'm still trying to figure out how I can maybe schedule these in advance while still doing the live streaming so that I can market them. So, as long as the bad guy is getting shot, you're all for it. Yeah, me too. I'm all for the bad guys being shot. Let's see what I've got over on the YouTube side. As explained here in 5 minutes, and you're giving a video, that's cool. They experimented on thousands of children in the Philippines and 600 children murdered. Yes. Dropper Truth is saying, Europe, their report through March 13, 2021 lists 3,964 deaths and 162,610 injuries following the injections of 3 experimental virus vaccines. Yeah. As I say, for me, it's real simple. That those vaccines could not possibly have gone through the rigorous testing necessary to find out what the efficacy will be in a large population and what the side effects are. For me, not going to take it for that reason. I have medications I might have an adverse interaction with. I'm not going to do it. And as you say, Artenemal, John made men and Colt made us equal. Yes, that is, it's a good shorthand for it. Colt was a legendary firearms designer, did one of the most famous pistols in the Old West, and that's largely where that comes from. A couple of pounds of lead and steel will, in fact, equalize a 120-pound woman against a 200-pound attacker. It's just that simple. And if you start taking that away, you're going to see more rapes and more murders of young women. And if these poor victims had been allowed to carry in this store rather than being disarmed by store policy, I doubt this individual would even have tried. If somebody like me had been in there, and to be honest, when it comes to concealed carry, if it's legal where I'm at, maybe even if it's not, I don't pay attention to that crap because I don't, if somebody comes in and does something like that, I want to be the guy who's getting a beat on him, taking him out before he murders 10 people. But if these poor victims had been allowed to defend themselves, as is their natural right and guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution, I don't think that all of them would be dead. You don't want more victim disarmament. Victim disarmament is bad. Okay? Let's see, marketing coordinator is saying Krispy Kreme donuts. Giving 1 donut if you take, yeah, I've seen that. Take the Vax, the holding company. As of May 2019, name is The Jab. They own Panera Bread as well. I never frequent any of those places. I stopped frequenting a lot of them after the 2016 election. I was living in Des Moines, Iowa at the time. Stopped in at a local Starbucks, and the patrons at Starbucks are extraordinarily liberal. I didn't know that till then, but they are. And I walked in, and I'm just standing there minding my own business, and the subject in general in the crowd comes, who did you vote for? And they're all, I voted for Hillary. Oh, yeah, Trump's terrible, Trump's awful, blah, 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 blah. And they asked me, and I said, well, I'm libertarian. I voted for the libertarian candidate. And they went nuts. Because I didn't vote for Hillary, I had contributed to her not being elected, and that made me the enemy. I beat out of that Starbucks as rapidly as I could because it got ugly. And I didn't want to put myself in physical jeopardy, which it was trending toward. So there's all kinds of businesses like that that I don't frequent precisely because I know where they stand on some of these issues. Jab Holding bought them out. Investment arm of the secretive Ryman family acquired Krispy Kreme for roughly $1.35 billion in 2016, December 12th, 2019, as of that. Well, I can't really. I don't know how to evaluate some of that stuff in terms of what's maybe impacting something or what isn't. I can just look at, like I say, Krispy Kreme and say, okay, well, if they're going to do that, then I'm not going there. I'm not going to buy their stuff. I think we've got some Krispy Kremes here in town, but most of them appear, well, they don't anymore. But before that may be why they're doing it. Before this pandemic started, they were in our convenience stores, and they aren't much anymore. They're not putting much of anything in convenience stores that are like that. So, anyway, that's my take on the murders that happened. By the way, as I say, I like to do debunking of press things. When you look at the press, watch for emotionally loaded language. If you see the word massacre, if you see the word rampage, these are emotionally loaded words. Edit them out of your mind when you're doing it, when you're watching, when you're reading it. Just edit it out. Substitute it with murder. Because what these emotionally loaded words are therefore are intentional to try to make the reader feel a certain way about the story. They come up all the time in stories. When you see stuff like that, my long-term example, the one that I always like to talk about, is the word salope in French. In English, salope is generally translated to be either bitch or whore or slut, something like that. But I discovered per personal experience that the word salope actually doesn't quite have an English translation. It really is somewhere between really dirty slut and the C word. That's where the translation actually falls. It's not really a one-to-one translation. That's because it has an emotional connotation that does not directly translate. Similarly, words like massacre, like rampage, things like that, those have emotional connotations that aren't literally translated. So when you see words like that, just edit them out. That's part of what I do when I debunk things. I go, emotionally loaded language, taking that out, substituting it for something emotionally neutral, like murders. Things like that. Let's see, over on YouTube, our 10-mile will Krispy Kreme pay my compensation if I develop debilitating health issues that keep me from providing for my family? Oh, no, of course they won't. But for all I know, I haven't looked up where you live, but for all I know, you may not actually have a problem. And like I say, right here, 224 deaths in a population of 324,000 plus. And it is less than half of the number of people that died of heart disease in 2019. This does not strike me as an actual problem where I live. And it isn't, as I calculated the numbers just offhand because I was doing it for a family member, calculated the numbers for Omaha, Nebraska, calculated the numbers for St. Louis, Missouri. Same deal. It's a non-issue there, really. If you have a high population density and if you have seaports, I think then you got to worry. But otherwise, those seem to be the real key infection vectors. So that's what I have to say about that. That said, I'm going to break this up a little bit. I have another piece that's probably going to be lengthy after this that I'm going to talk about in the Woke Report, because someone is doing a lot of muckraking over Fanish YouTube channels, very successful ones, and I'm going to talk about her. But in between this, I do like to break things up a little bit sometimes for new viewers with a review of something. And lately I've been reviewing Superman and Lois. I think that's a great show, has been so far. And so I'm going to do my review of Superman and Lois, pardon me, while I move my freaking chats around, because, again, I could not do this in advance because of the way the restreaming works. So, my review. Well, unlike most reviewers, I don't just sit down and walk through the plot and tell you what I liked or I didn't like. You will always with me find more depth than you will with other reviewers. I don't just talk about this. I talk about everything as much as possible. I talk about the acting, the direction, the cinematography, things that go into making a film. And I can do this because a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was once an actor. And was not a good actor. If I was, I'd stayed in it instead of going to computer science. But it gives me a background. It's one of those things where it's hard to turn it off. Once you've gotten it in your blood, it's really hard to turn off seeing things on the screen. So I do go over a lot of that. Fortunately, when you get into a TV series, a lot of the times I've gone over things more than once, one time. I usually, you'll see doing tonight, I'll be doing it with the director of this particular episode who's never directed an episode before. You can go over a lot of stuff with that individual. There's a couple of them. But beyond that, if you've seen it once, I don't go over it over and over again. But I can speak with a little bit of authority on this, not as much authority as a modern working actor, and I never want to give that impression. As the saying goes, those who can do, and those who can't teach. And probably my reviews come close to teaching, which I've also done. Superman and Lois. Well, I don't know. I think the show's very good, actually. I think it's a really good show. TDG, when will MSM circle back to overpopulation to push the GND? Why don't they just let the CN virus take people out? I don't know that it's... I don't think that there's any big, giant conspiracy going on there. They grasp onto straws. I have a video on both BitChute. I push BitChute because I get better views there, and YouTube called Climate Science is Not Science, and look at the reboot version of that. I'm a little more proud of the way that one came out. I have two of them, but the reboot one is one worth watching, and it's more recent. It explains how I, as a scientist, look at it, and it's not science. And in that particular video, I walked through doomsday scenarios that have started since 1965, the year I was born, to present. There is more than one doomsday scenario per year. I have survived at least 56 doomsdays. This is no more than another doomsday that they're pushing. They've been very successful because, unfortunately, and I have a whole video series about this, America's Broken Schools. In today's schools, K through 12, and also to a large extent college, they don't teach anything. I was amazed when I was teaching at the place that I was calling this show, the place that shall not be named. And I discovered that the students there didn't know how to read. The high school grads that were going there, it was a technical college, didn't know how to read, they didn't know how to write, and they couldn't perform the most basic math. And I'm in no way am I overstating that. That is the actual, honest-to-God case. Try teaching IT to people who cannot, binary math and logic that's necessary in IT. Try teaching that to people who can't do mathematics beyond addition and subtraction on their fingers. And I'm not overstating that. That's exactly what it was. They don't teach anything. What they do, however, do is communist and socialist indoctrination. And they've been taught for 12 years straight. Now we've only got 8 more years to live. That's what the current number is. Usually it's 5 to 10 before we're all going to die on various, some kind of doomsday scenario. And it comes and it goes and nobody's dead. So they'll learn eventually, but they're dangerous until they do. Drop 2 says, why the 2-month hiatus between episodes 5 and 6 of Superman and Lois? No idea. Bummed about that. Let's see. Marshall says a comparative review of the theatrical and Snyder cut of the Justice League would be interesting. Oh man, I could, but the problem is if you watch my Justice League Snyder cut review, my general take on it was it's so long. It bored me. I have a very good attention span. You have to in IT. You develop one. But after 3 hours, I was really, okay, I gotta keep watching this thing. It was just boring. And doing a comparative one would probably require me to actually watch it again. And I have zero desire to watch it again. And I suggest to people, unless you're just a die-hard fan of Zack Snyder, and I don't know why you would be, but if you are, unless you're one of those people who clamored for the Snyder release, don't watch it. It's long, it's boring, it's basically a black and white movie. And in fact, when Snyder said he was maybe going to come out with a black and white version, I thought, well, that'll be easy. Damn thing is color graded so dark and gray and flat. I thought, yeah, a black and white version ought to be very simple. And that was part of the problem. There were battles where you can't see what's going on because it's so damn dark. It's just not a very good movie from my perspective. If I was going to do a comparative review, I'd have to actually watch both of them again, and I have no desire to watch 2 bad movies again, particularly not one that's 4 freaking hours long. Oh, that was terrifying. DDG already propagandized. Look how well the environment did when people were locked up. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Never mind the fact that in the United States, the teen suicide rate increased by more than 100%. Wonder why that is. Most people, myself, my mother, we're real introverts. We don't mind just, being home alone. That's fine for us. If you stick us, even if there hadn't been this virus, we'd have been home, But no, you take this and you put some most poor people into a home for more than a year and not going out very much. It's going to have a negative impact on their psyche. No question about that. You use the 10 and 1 to do your math. I'm not sure what you mean exactly by that. Red Letter Media already did that in their latest Best of the Worst. Oh, they did a Best of the Worst comparative review. I caught part of that review of that they were doing. And again, for me, the whole movie was so boring that, and I had my own take on it already. I just couldn't sit down and watch them do an hour of it again. I'm sure it was great. I loved Red Letter Media. Part of the reason that I'm even here is because of them. My really early videos, I badly imitated them before sort of finding my own style, which may or may not be any good. But I imitated them, and I love Red Letter Media. If you ever watch, and you should, the Plinkett reviews of any of the movies that he's reviewed, I am in 100% agreement with him, particularly with regards to the Star Wars prequel trilogy, just 100% in agreement with him. Mr. Plinkett talks about everything that I ever wanted to say about the prequel trilogy. He talks about. So they're great, and I love them. But for this one, I was like, I know what this is like. For me, it sucked, and I'm not going to watch it again. Anyway, I'm going to get to my review now of Superman and Lois Season 1, Episode 5, The Best of Smallville. We will have to, if you have come to this, take it as read that you've, if you're going to watch a review, that you've either watched Superman and Lois Season 1, Episode 5, or you don't care if it's spoiled for you. But nevertheless, for safety's sake, we should probably issue a...
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. All hands, prepare for incoming spoilers.
Yes, it is a spoiler alert while I move my frickin' chat around. And that is because I am a secret master of fandom. And that means that the fandom is strong with me. Now, this is not a boast. This is not a brag. This is actually just where you find yourself after having watched, read, and listened to over 100 years' worth of science fiction. The problem with we secret masters of fandom is that we're kind of cursed. We cannot see the new stuff without seeing the century that came before. And we discovered that there's not very much that's original, and it often interferes with our ability to enjoy things. Now, one thing I don't do is outrage reviews. I know that there are a lot of reviewers who are out there who are simply actors portraying outrage because outrage tends to sell. They hate everything with a knee-jerk reflex because their viewers want to see them hate things. But this causes a weird feedback loop between fans and popular reviewers, so ultimately nobody will like anything, even if it's good. I mean, I hate The Last Jedi, but, there's some good things that I like that you end up people hating. But I don't do that. I don't do outrage. If I like something, I'm going to tell you why in detail. If I dislike it, I'm going to tell you why in detail. But I don't do outrage. Unlike most reviewers, I am, in fact, the adult in this particular room. And we'll move my freaking chat around again. And yay, I didn't pull the wrong element this time. Star Trek Nemesis is another plagiarized version of Wrath of Khan. Yes, or as William Shatner says, the Wrath of Khan. If you've ever heard him talk, he actually says Wrath. By the way, happy 90th birthday to William Shatner, I think yesterday. Good on you. Please keep staying around. That is one, if you've watched, I do some memorials for people, and that's one I ain't looking forward to. Please, Bill, stay around. Anyway, on Superman and Lois Season 1, Episode 5, The Best of Smallville. Well, the writers on this, one is Brent Fletcher. He's credited with the teleplay. I've talked about him before in reviews, so I'm not going to talk about everything that he's done. The next one is Nadria Tucker, who is new to this show, and this is where I start to go into some detail. Her IMDb lists her as active from 2017 to present. God, do I feel old. She has 3 writer credits, 11 of which were for Krypton. She has producer credit for all of the other episodes of the season so far. And she has won no awards. Story is credited to Todd Helbing rather. We've talked about him before, so I'm not going to go into it very much. In terms of the writing itself, I would have to say that it is generally good. We have our usual family drama that is showing us a non-dysfunctional family, which I like to see. Jonathan is starting to get ticked off about the fact that he's no longer this sort of, in Metropolis, he was headed to being, a star football player and all that, and now he's not. And his brother's kind of horning in on that, so he's getting upset, and that makes perfect sense. And he's talking about, geez, I want to move, and I've heard that a million times. When I first moved with my family out of our first home, I wanted to move back after a while, a short period, but then you get used to it. When my kids, we first moved out from Chicago, well, they wanted to move back, but then they get used to it. So if the only thing I would do differently in that particular case with this writing is be just that much more adult about it. Say, well, I know that you left a lot behind, but if you just wait, because I've gone to places and I felt like I wanted to move back, but then I get used to it. I think if you just, wait a bit, you're going to find that it's okay. Saying something like that as a father would have been okay too. But, you might have done something like that. It does, however, sort of miss, because there's a very delicate balance when you get into this kind of show, between action and the family drama. I like the family drama because it's not the drama that we see in most of the other CW shows where things are going along, moving at a great clip, and then they pull the brakes to sit and talk about their feelings for 10 minutes. It's not that. When they get into the family drama, it's places that make sense. But you also have to have some action. You've got to have action in a superhero story, particularly when you're talking about Superman. There is a very delicate balance that you have to maintain here. And on this one, I think they missed the mark a little bit. They didn't have enough of the action. And the action that they did have, frankly, was lit so dark, it was hard to see. The majority of the action, they had 2 action sequences only. One where Clark puts out a fire in a really suspicious way, and one where he's fighting another superpowered person whom I've forgotten the name of. But the one in the fire, that you could see. The one where he's going after the superpowered person, you couldn't see. It was shot at night. You could see some things happening. When it got to them actually duking it out, it was really hard to see because it was shot in near darkness. So those are the only 2 action sequences they have, and I think that it misses the balance. You need a bit more action rather than just focusing on the family drama. Drop of Truth says you're looking forward to HBO's Dune and Apple TV's Foundation. They both look beautiful. I'll be very interested to see what they do with those. Dune is one that's really, really hard to adapt. I think Sci-Fi Channel probably has the best adaptation because they did a miniseries. It was like 3 days of 2 hours each, and of both Dune and Children of Dune. I think that was a really good adaptation. Dune is one of those things that has such a gigantic backstory that it's very, very hard to adapt. Similarly, Foundation. That has turned into, if you had just Foundation and Empire, and what was it, Second Foundation, I think, the first 3 books that Asimov wrote. If you just had those, it would be a little bit easier. But now there's this entire gigantic series that are stuck together. So there's an enormous amount of backstory there, and I'm not sure. It'll be very interesting to see what happens when they do that adaptation. Excuse me. And Drop of Truth is saying you're 56 and have moved greater than 40 times on 3 continents. Yes, it's an adult thing to say to your children. Look, I know it seems bad right now. Your girlfriend, like, what a shock. His girlfriend broke up with him. She's in Metropolis in Kansas, broke up with him. And they're supposed to be like 15 years old. So that's another thing where, if he's upset about being broken up with, an adult thing to say to him is, look, I feel your pain. I was once a kid myself. I remember my first breakup. It sucked. But think of it this way. You're 15. Were you planning to spend the rest of your life with this girl? Because you weren't. There's no way. Nobody, almost nobody, a tiny fraction, tiny percentage of people stay with their high school sweethearts, especially from like age 15. So it's an adult thing to say to somebody, say to your kid, hey, listen, were you actually thinking that you're going to spend the rest of your life with her? I mean, this breakup was going to happen. Whether it happened now because of this, down the road because you got sick of each other, it was still going to happen. Did you really think that you were going to stay with her the whole time? But again, the biggest problem I think here was that this episode missed that balance that you have to have with action and also the family drama. I'm going to switch to another card here for a moment, so you're going to see me move around my chat again. One thing that was interesting, because last week I mentioned how we had been able to determine the precise location of Smallville based on everything that they said. And that precise location is, by the way, coordinates 37.309733 by negative 94.705363. Put those into Google Maps, and you will find Smallville is right there. It's damn near exactly. You can almost exactly figure out where it is. It's very cool. I was very happy. My last review on that was doing the math. And that is a standalone review. You can find it on YouTube and on BitChute. But I did the math, could find it very easy. One of the things they mentioned is the superpowered character who commits suicide apparently at the end, and whose name I don't remember precisely because he was there like twice. Is that they mention that according to them, what happened was he disappeared from New Carthage. They keep using New Carthage because New Carthage is a fictional place in D.C., but in point of fact, Smallville is about a 30-mile drive from Carthage, Missouri. And to me, it makes more sense that maybe in this universe there's a New Carthage in that same location. I don't know. But they mention that he disappeared from there and then woke up with some kind of amnesia in Stanton County, Kansas. Well, I looked it up because I didn't know where Stanton County is. So here we are with Smallville way the hell over here, and Stanton County is way the hell over there in a straight line. Okay, I can buy this. It's if you're going to disappear for a long time, winding up on the complete other side of the state because it's damn near border to border. You can't see it very well in this picture, but Kansas is almost a rectangular state, and the boundary of the picture is almost at the borders. So it's like, okay, all right, if you're going to put Smallville where they appear to have put it, and you're going to have somebody that had amnesia and turned up far away, that makes sense. Good on these writers. As I mentioned in that review, I was all prepared to say, oh, God, there's no, because I live in Nebraska, which is right up here, just north of this. I was prepared to say, oh, there has never been any coal mining done there. It's a story point. No, there has been. It's down in this corner over here, which happens to be close to Carthage, the New Carthage they keep mentioning. They did their homework, and they did their homework on this one too. If you're going to disappear for a long time, showing up in Stanton County makes a certain level of sense. Let's see. Drop Truth says, if you're Amish or Luddite, then 15 is the age you get betrothed. Yes, but if you're not, most people these days, hell, my one kid has been dating somebody, they're adults. They've been dating since they first, midpoint in the bachelor's degree. This kid's getting a doctorate right now. They've been dating that long and have zero plans to marry, as far as I know. That's kind of a generational thing now. I think maybe what happened is the generation after mine looked at ours, saw our, 50 to 75% divorce rate and how it destroyed people's lives and their fortunes. And they said, I don't think I'm going to do that. But even then, I married at age like 27 or something. The age at which people getting married has been moving back by generation to generation. And like I say, today, unless you're like, say, Amish or something like that, very rare that you're going to, stay with your 15-year-old high school sweetheart. Marketer Porter says, when I was a young man, now 62, I had all the right answers to all the wrong questions. Make lots of money demands. They show you the packaging insert required by federal law. Checkmate with a lot of zeros. Yeah. Drop 2 is saying, then you get to pay tax. Marketing Porter, government robs you blind. Oh, yes. Libertarians are fond of saying that if it wasn't for taxation, for every good and service in the United States, at every possible point of production, the retail price for almost everything that you see on the shelf, prices for goods and services, would be about 1/8 of what it is. The government takes tax at every possible point of production for any good and service that is out there, and it takes an enormous piece out of it. Anyway, good on the writers. Thank you very much. You still apparently are doing your homework. Awesome for you. You are continuing to make this secret master of fandom very happy, and honestly, that's very hard to do anymore. If you want children with your partner, then marriage is the answer. I think, when you're talking about, this is where we get into my MGTOW sort of leanings. I do not counsel any young man to marry. In fact, I counsel exactly the opposite. The fact is, you can have this stage of the game. You can have all the benefits of being married. Aside, if you leave the, there's a religious part of it that, as an atheist, I don't get into. If you have faith, then obviously, if you're Catholic or something, you want to have, the sanctity of marriage. That's great. But if you don't have that in behind you, it places a man in today's family law in a significant and serious disadvantage economically. If you get divorced, it is a near certainty that a man will walk away destitute for the rest of his life and probably not have access to the children, and very likely what access will be poisoned by the custodial parent. And if you're not married, well, you may have the same stuff happen with the children, but you will not go broke. It just places you at a severe economic disadvantage, and I don't counsel any man to actually marry these days. Anyway, back to the review. We get into acting. And again, I'm going to have to move around my chat. Hopefully this is the only time that I have to do this. Okay, so, oops, and now I went and minimized my poor man's teleprompter. Good Lord. We get into the acting. I'm not going to go through any specific actor here. I think they're all doing their usual good job. The teenagers seem like teenagers. I'm sure most of them are adults in real life. But the teenagers seem like teenagers. We're still seeing good acting, good story out of all of them. The only thing, mostly falls onto the writing in terms of things. This alternate universe story that seems to be playing out, I think that's working out well. And the actor playing Colonel Luthor, or Captain Luthor, Wole Parks, is doing a good job. I don't see anything here to dislike. There's nothing here that I think is, so far is going to win anybody any awards. But by the same token, they're doing well. And some of these are very young actors. And, with those, it's if you're doing really good casting, you get a good performance. Otherwise, it can be kind of hit or miss. So, good on them. They're doing a good job. Nothing here that I'm going to say jumped out at me like, wow, that was really moving. But at the same token, everything made perfect sense, and they were able to, get across what they needed to. Excuse me. Let's see. Catholic or something. Bible Christians rule. No problem against that. I went to Mass for 13 years with my ex-wife, and that was because I had promised to raise my children Catholic. And even if I'm an atheist, I considered it a point of honor that I promised to do that, and so that's what we did. I am not an atheist, if you haven't watched me before. I am not an atheist like Richard Dawkins, who has a freaking chip on his shoulder. I don't go around telling people of faith that they're hallucinating or, say, oh, religion's bad for society. No, in point of fact, I think there's 2 or 3 things that Christianity brought to modern Western civilization that wouldn't, if we didn't have it, we wouldn't be where we are. So, hey, believe whatever you like. As long as it does not require you to initiate force against anyone, anything that you want is fine with me. Drop 2 says, goods and services tax in Australia is applied at the production, wholesale, and retail stages. Exactly. 3 bloody times. The same thing here. I always use the example of making a pencil, right? Okay, they're going to tax you for chopping down the tree. They're going to tax the tree after it's chopped down. They're going to tax the transportation from getting the tree to the lumber mill. They're going to tax having to transform the tree into a pencil. They're going to tax transferring the pencil to a wholesaler. They're going to tax the wholesaler when it moves into the retailer. And then they tax the private citizen. Every possible point of production. Let's see. Catholics don't follow the Bible. I'll leave that up to other people. I'm not a good person to talk about it. I'm an atheist. Unfortunately, non-Christians, Drop 2 says, make the mistake that Roman Catholicism is proper Christianity, and it's not. It's idolatry. Again, I'm not the guy to talk about that. I am not qualified. It is not something I have the slightest bit of experience with, other than my ex was Catholic, so we went to Mass. I can't talk about anybody else's faith, and don't even try. I don't say that Catholicism is the way to go. I just say that's what I did. And I did learn a fair amount when I was doing it. Anyway, our director on this one is a new director for this, Rachel Talalay. Her IMDb lists 63 director credits from 1981 to present. Finally, an early Gen Xer who has some real credits. She is the director with the most experience that we've seen so far on this show. She's done damn near everything that can be done behind the camera as a director, producer, production manager. She's written things. She's edited things. Very, very experienced. First time we've seen that. Most directors, of course, are much younger than me. But this is the first time we've seen one about my age with a fair amount of experience. She has done episodes of multiple TV series, multiple episodes, among them Legends of Tomorrow, The Flash, Doom Patrol, Supergirl, Riverdale, and a lot of science fiction and horror in her background. She also did 7 episodes of Doctor Who, all of which were from the Capaldi era, including Twice Upon a Time, Capaldi's last episode that did a crossover with the first Doctor. Excuse me. She is also, her first gig, in fact, was a production assistant on the film Polyester in 1981. So, yay, somebody my age, finally. She's won awards, a number of them, in fact. She has won the Directors Guild of Canada Award in 2019, Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Family Series for Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. She won the Leo Award in 2006, Best Direction in a dramatic series for Terminal City. She also won the Leo again in 2007 for Best Direction in a youth or children's program or series for The Wind and the Willows. She also won the Women's International Film Television Showcase Foundation International Visionary Awards in 2016, the Producer Award for Sherlock. And she won the Women in Film and Television Vancouver's Spotlight Award for 2016, the Spotlight Award for Woman of the Year. So she's gotten some of those. Her direction. Okay, the directing is all fine here. You know, there's nothing, again, that jumps out at me and says, oh, my God, amazing direction. That's going to win some awards. Everything is, set well. Everything works. What they do with the superpowers works, and that's something that's always, okay, is that going to... Again, it's this balance. Even when you're doing superpowered stuff, it's got to look kind of cool. And aside from the one where they shot the big action sequence too dark, that worked. I didn't have any problem with that. If it had been daylight when that fight happened, I think it would have been great. However, I would caution the entire series, frankly, on its color grading. This has been an ongoing thing that I've not really addressed before now. But Superman is a lighthearted adventure character, and he should be graded in something that makes him look bright. As an example, just a color grading example. And I have to move my freaking chat again. As a color grading example, this is a perfect example of how Superman should work. Ever since Man of Steel. Thank you, Zack Snyder, you hack. We've seen this or worse. Dark, washed out. This completely misses the tone of the character. They got it right. Richard Donner got it right in 1978. Right? Yellow, red, blue, clearly so. This is not quite red. It's not quite, blue. It's a darker shade. It's all graded too much dark. And it's maybe a costuming thing as well. But I mean, if you look at, it's just the faces. When you look at how everything's shot, I think it's a grading issue. The color is not graded very bright. This is one of those mistakes, again, since Man of Steel is making Superman look dark and washed out. It really betrays a complete misunderstanding of the tone of the character. See, Batman is dark. His entire backstory, his MO are dark. The villains and foes he faces are all very dark. Dark is good for Batman. But Superman is a lighthearted adventure character. His backstory is one of hope. His foes tend to be mad scientists, superpowered aliens, that sort of thing. Few of them even approach very much darkness. When Justice League works as a concept, it's because it knows how to showcase these characters' different tones and how they either mesh together or they clash. You get Superman and Batman in the same movie. It shouldn't be a question of darkness all the way around. It should be Batman's dark, Superman's light. How do these two interact together? What happens when you take these two totally different tones and put them together? And again, one of the many reasons that Zack Snyder's interpretation of Superman doesn't work is because he applies just a dark, washed-out tone to the character. There's a video on YouTube where they colorize it. It's purely a question of color grading. What they did was they had a film that was actually fairly bright in color, but because they'd done so well with the Dark Knight stuff, which was all dark, they graded it much, much darker and washed out. So there's a YouTube channel, I think it's just, search for a video called Man of Steel in Color, and you'll see it. They went through and took a number of shots and regraded them to bring out the color, and it looks a hell of a lot more like this than it does this or worse. They just don't understand the tone. A really good example of this, and again, I'm going to have to move my freaking, oh, great. Nope. There, I got you. A really great example of this is my very favorite of all-time comic book artist, Alex Ross. Alex Ross does amazing work. What he actually does is he paints. He doesn't draw and pencil and all that. All of his artwork is painted. He's a very expensive artist as a result. You don't see him on a lot of stuff. But he gets the tone. You see it right here. These are two of his paintings, one of Superman and one of Batman. And clearly he understands this tonal difference. Batman is dark. Superman is bright. That's the way it should be. The interesting part about putting these characters together is how do those tones interact with each other? How do they clash? How do maybe they work together? Again, Alex Ross gets it. A lot of other people don't. And this show, unfortunately, doesn't either. This ultimately, I believe, Drop Truth says, world is a dismal place today, and TV reflects this. Not when I look out my window, it's not. I see colors. I see brightness. I see hope in my world. I think I'm about to talk about this. This ultimately boils down to a problem that I've talked about quite a lot, which is the people who make our popular entertainment, whether it's films, TV, music, games, comic books, etc., are nihilists. They believe that the world is a horrible place and cannot imagine anything beyond the limitations of their own petty, nihilistic lives. The world, honestly, when I look out my window, isn't nihilistic. It's only these creators. And they are the nihilists. Superman isn't nihilistic and should never be portrayed as such. Now, I'm making kind of a big deal about this in terms of the color grading and stuff because it's important in a show that otherwise should be optimistic. We're seeing a family here that works together that is not, they could easily have done something where the family is just dysfunctional, and they haven't. It's optimistic. But as I've always said, as Jay and Silent Bob ripped me off. I have a video about that, by the way, on the YouTube and BitChute side. Jay and Silent Bob have ripped me off because they ripped off a line of mine that I've been saying for decades. Hollywood, California. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. People from Hollywood who create art entertainment need to get outside of their provincial view. They believe, their belief system is shaped by living and working in a place where horrible people do horrible things to other horrible people all day long, where a handshake means nothing, and where, frankly, rape and child molestation rule the day. I invite you, any of you who are making this stuff, come visit me, and I will show you a hopeful world that you clearly can't imagine exists. And in the process, you will learn to create things that will actually generate excitement in your audience and guarantee that you keep plenty of butts in the seats and money in your bank accounts. Drop Truth saying Alex Toth from the Golden Age was a master of shadow. Yes, Alex Ross is a master. Yes, he is. He's doing a comic called Marvel for Marvel Comics about Nightmare taking over the universe now. It's great. I'll have to take a look at that. And Alex Ross, JLA versus JLSA is fantastic. Anything that Alex Ross does is amazing. He uses actual people, models, in doing this shot. He had somebody who was built like Superman, out with his arms outstretched, so he paints that stuff. He had someone who was built like Batman doing this, probably with a cape so that he could get, all the shadows and whatnot on the cape. Alex Ross is amazing. It's just amazing. I love the man. Dismal as in psychological, not physical. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. People are nihilists. Our creators are nihilists. That is the basic problem. Guys, come out to where I live. I will show you around. You will find a place that no longer conforms to your horrible worldview because you live and work in a horrible place. And move my chat again. So our cinematographer, moving away from that in this episode, is Stefan Mahler. He has 9 cinematographer credits. It's the first time he's done an episode of Superman Lois. 15 episodes of The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. He has 19 camera and electrical department credits, which means mostly that he's the guy who's sitting and running the camera, where he did multiple episodes of many TV series, and he's been multiple director of photography and second unit sequences for many TV series and no awards. I think the cinematography here is fine. I see it over and over again. You know, the cinematographer, the director's job is to say, here's the shot I want. The cinematographer's job is to get the shot. And in a really good working relationship like they had in Superman in 1978, there's back and forth. So the director says, I want this shot. Cinematographer says, yeah, okay, I can get that. But maybe if we do it just a little bit differently. That's a movie where you can clearly see the collaboration. I don't see the collaboration necessarily here. Could be there. I don't know. Cinematography is fine, except, as I say, that last, superhero battle was hard to follow because it was all dark. I think they should have made a choice to shoot that in daylight. And I don't know cinematographically if there was some way to shoot that. I think there may have been so that you could make out what the fight was happening. There may have been a ding on the cinematographer in that respect. Production designer is Dan Hermanson. We've talked about him before. The production design here is fine. They continue, as I've said before, they've never strayed away very far. Since 1978, they really haven't strayed away very far from the design of the Kent farm and in terms of how that looks. Smallville looks fine. I have been, I've lived in towns even smaller than that. They don't necessarily have a harvest festival. That's one thing in the script writing I'd wonder about. Usually they have some kind of summer festival. Greatest example I can give of this is Riverside, Iowa. They have Trek Fest as their summer festival. All it is they've got a summer festival that they do like all these small towns, has some kind of summer festival. The weirdest one I've ever seen, the Shadfly Festival, and I've forgotten where it is, but it's across the river. I think it may have been Quincy, Illinois. No, it wasn't that. It was some small town. A shadfly, if you don't know, is an insect about this big. It's black, and it has about a 24-hour lifespan. Where I was working at a theater one time, it was a riverboat that had been pulled up out of the water. And these things it was the most bizarre thing. They would swarm in the thousands overnight and attach themselves to this white boat, right, this white riverboat, all along the walls. And then they die there. They in the morning, they're born, they lay their eggs, and then they die. But they would attach themselves to this white because it was the last thing that would get very cold. And every morning, somebody would have to go out there with a hose and hose off the damn shadflies. Well, there's a town across the river that actually has a shadfly festival. That's their summer festival. It's themed after these stupid insects. Well, Riverside, Iowa has a summer festival called Trek Fest. And it's there to honor the birth of Captain James T. Kirk. They have proclaimed themselves, and it's become sort of canonical now, that they are the future birthplace of James T. Kirk. And I have been there. Marshall, I don't believe you have been there, but a bunch of us who I have been associated with as long as I have Marshall went to Trek Fest on 2 occasions in the 1990s. I'll tell you something how you haven't lived until you've played the Cow Patty Bingo. So in terms of what you see at the festival, hey, I'm all for that. It's just that I really haven't seen those in small towns. I've seen summer festivals. Might have been better. But I understand what they're doing there. I'm not going to dig them too hard on that. But the production design throughout on that is pretty consistent with what I've seen on those. When we had a summer festival in where was I living? In Iowa. I've forgotten the name of the small town. There's a population of about 1,000, 1,500, something like that. A summer festival included one of those traveling crappy... what am I trying to say? With the rides and stuff that go from town to town. So I can buy what they're doing here, and the production design for that is all fine. Let's see. Drop Truth saying 4-season Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was the worst season. Sorry, but you can't put H.P. Lovecraft, great old ones on film or TV. They're 100% too cosmic. Lovecraft Country did it better. I think the only place I've ever seen them do it well was in South Park. You watch that sometimes. There's like 3-part episode where Cartman teams up with Cthulhu. That's pretty damn funny. And he goes around killing hippies, and that's pretty fun to watch. So, the music here is by Dan Romer. I won't talk about his credits. He's been doing music for all of the episodes so far. I have no issue with his music. There's nothing here, again, that jumps out at me as being really worthy of getting an award. But by the same token, what generally pops out at me is if you're John Williams level music, that'll just, overpower you and go, wow, how awesome. But other than that, for me, does it fit? And it'll jump out at me if it just doesn't fit. And everything fits here. It fits fine. I have no objection to it. Special effects, as always, are by an army. You have no idea who's doing what. The special effects here are fine. They do a couple of them, like when they smash through somebody's grain elevator. By the way, guys, just a point of information. You smash through a grain elevator, you're probably going to get a big explosion. One of the big problems when you get grain in like that is there tends to be a lot of dust that goes along with it. Well, the dust is pretty flammable. You can see this if you go to any restaurant that's got little packets of little packets of non-dairy creamer and stuff like that. Open one once, turn on a lighter and pour it over it and see what happens. It goes up. Well, the same thing can happen in a grain elevator. When I was young, they've gotten better at building these grain elevators, so they don't do it. But when I was young, every once in a while you'd hear about a grain elevator explosion in my part of the country. And oh God, just miserable. So if you have Superman flying and smashing through one and with another superpowered being, you're likely to get a grain elevator explosion because of that. The friction will cause that to happen. So, a little thing. Drop Drew saying South Park stole the kitten and bulldogs. Oh, yeah, well, he wasn't stealing it. It was a complete homage. There's a difference between stealing and homage. Not necessarily every single viewer got it, but people like us who watched those cartoons understood. Costume designer is Katrina McCarthy, as she's been costume designer all the way through. I think she's going to be designer for the entire series. I would only do this, cautioning her against too much flannel. People in rural areas wear exactly the same clothes as those in urban areas. Sometimes you'll get some flannel or longer sleeved, thicker stuff when you're doing work outside. When I used to help out with my grandfather and his cattle ranch, we had longer sleeves even in the summertime because you're dealing with sometimes with barbed wire. So you want a little protection there. But for the most part, they wear just the same things you do. I'm from Nebraska right now. I am wearing this as a friggin' costume, right? Nobody wears this stuff in real life. Underneath this, I'm wearing sweatpants. When I'm done, I'm going to take this off, put it inside the closet, and go put on a T-shirt. Although, to be honest, it's probably going to be not the average T-shirt because I'm a Superman fan and I have 4 or 5 T-shirts with the Superman S symbol on it. So probably see me with that. But otherwise, people just wear the same stuff. Be careful of too much flannel. Also, I continue to say, get Superman out of the modified muscle suit and back into spandex. Tyler Hoechlin is a buff guy. He does not need the muscle suit. Superman does not need a thick costume because he's freaking invulnerable. Spandex works. And put back the damn trunks. I'm sorry, he just doesn't look like Superman without the trunks. You may think it looks silly, but it doesn't really. I don't think it does. Make of it's done by an army. We can't attribute anything to any given person. The only thing I have to say about that is, please, for God's sake, get rid of Superman's stubble. There's no reason for Superman to have that. He shaves. Deal. At the end of any review, we might ask ourselves, is it any good? On a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 being passable, and 5 being Hugo Award-worthy, because frack the Emmys, they don't matter, I would actually give this one about a 3.5. It is a good episode, but misses that balance between the action and the family drama. There wasn't enough action this time around, and I like family drama in this context, but I think you risk losing viewers because of that. But if you like superheroes, you should definitely be watching the show. As I've said over and over, it continues to be the best live-action Superman since Richard Donner's 1978 film, and the best TV Superman since the DC animated universe in the 1990s and 2000s. Good show. Watch it. Guys, just watch out about doing too little action. Hey, Dean, nice to see you. I know Dean from the place that shall not be named, by the way. Oh, let me go back to, we're going to do the freaking woke report. Oh, God, the woke report this week. Well, before I get into the stuff that'll just drive me insane, Drop 2 says, Lady Gravemaster is pushing for a Man of Steel 2. As we discussed on Twitter, the proposed Superman 5 skip against Brainiac 5 would be good. I think having a great Brainiac one would be good if you could. I think you could pull it off visually, certainly. I don't think Zack Snyder should be allowed to do anything else in the DC universe. I think he made a really bad first 3 movies that he did. I don't think he should be doing any others. Anyway, our woke report, as always, for those of you who are new with me on Twitch, I always do one that I'm going to have to move the freaking things on again, I guess.
The mob that stormed the Capitol on January 6th to try to stop Congress from carrying out its constitutional responsibilities were behaving like domestic enemies of our country. But let's be clear. The John Brennans, Adam Schiffs, and the oligarchs in big tech who are trying to undermine our constitutionally protected rights and turn our country into a police state with KGB-style surveillance are also domestic enemies, and much more powerful and therefore dangerous than the mob that stormed the Capitol. Now, John Brennan said,
So I know looking forward that the members of the Biden team who have been nominated or have been appointed are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas, where they germinate in different parts of the country and they gain strength, and it brings together an unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, even libertarians.
Now, President Biden, I call upon you and all members of Congress from both parties to denounce these efforts by the likes of Brennan and others to take away our civil liberties that are endowed to us by our Creator and guaranteed in our Constitution. If you don't stand up to these people now, then our country will be in great peril.
And Democrats, if you hadn't screwed her into the ground like a drill bit, this is the person we could have had president. The one who is actually looking out for people like me, a libertarian, who's being falsely accused of being involved in some kind of grand conspiracy to overthrow the government by the former director of the CIA, which tells you that's got to be on their radar currently in real life. I'm going to play that every single video and stream until people are utterly sick of seeing it because it needs to be seen. Tulsi Gabbard, if you're not happy with your present relationship, please give me a call. Stop drooling. Yes, absolutely. That's me. I'm drooling all over Tulsi Gabbard. I love the woman. I'll keep showing that. I'll keep showing it. Okay, moving my chat around again because simul-streaming. I kind of had to the first time anyway. All right. Oh, God. We're starting to see something, and other bigger YouTube channels that deal with some of the fanish space as I do. I always say, man, I really wish that I could just be doing science fiction fantasy superheroes. But I can't because of the damned woke. There is no escaping the woke. And because of that, I do a lot of politics, and they're being forced to now, too. They don't want to do it any more than I do. They're just being forced to. Hey, SuperCruise63, how you doing? Feeling a bit under the weather. Just wanted to say hi. Well, hi. Glad to have you here. Sorry you're not feeling good. Hope you get well soon. Anyway, a lot of these channels are having to deal with stuff that get into politics, even though I know from having talked offline with a couple of them that they don't want to at all, but they're being forced to by woke a-holes. And in particular, I'm going to talk to you about one woke a-hole who is out busy screwing over one creator and the people associated with him. Geeks and Gamers has been doxxed. And they discovered something that I'm not surprised about, because I have actually talked offline with some of these people. People like popular channels like that Star Wars girl, The Quartering, another of others who are big in the fantasy space, are actually under the general thing of Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers. I knew this because I've talked offline with some of them. I knew they were associated with him. Quartering, they were just saying outright he's their boss after he got doxxed. And I assume that's what it was. I've talked to them offline. I knew that. Yeah, big surprise. And I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, if you got a guy like Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers who got real big, you know, why not take on some of these other channels under your brand? Why not? And I know from talking to one of them offline that he does not interfere with their content. They're free to say anything that they want to say about anything. He does not interfere with it. He isn't like he's taking Geeks and Gamers and branding these guys. He's just taking them in because he's kind of building a bit of an empire on this. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You know, the persons that I've talked to offline are very clear. He doesn't screw with them. He doesn't mess with them at all. Is that a woman or transgender? No, talk about her momentarily. So what's happened is they have fallen under fire, and particularly Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, now that it's become public knowledge that he is the head of what amounts to a small empire of people that are otherwise doing these kinds of things. And according to the people I've talked to offline, and one of them who made a video today, he also doesn't take any of their money, right? He's just got them under his brand, sort of. He's like an overall producer, a boss or something. But he doesn't screw with them. He doesn't take their money or anything like that. I don't know how it all works. But again, I've talked offline with some of these people. I knew this. You know, no surprise here. Anyway, we have here one Meg Dowell. She's woke as all hell. One of the first things that she said that started things off was she said on Twitter, quote, "What female fans often struggle with is the law." I'm sorry, let me make sure I get this right. Often struggle with the most is feeling safe and comfortable to express their love for Star Wars in spaces that already exist for fans. Women shouldn't have to ask permission to exist in the fandom. Meg, I am 56 years old. That is, in fact, how long I've been at this. I am a secret master of fandom. I have been around, clearly, a zarkton more than you. And I am here to say that that was an unadulterated load of crap. I've been around doing this since forever. I've been active very heavily in organized fandom since 1972. And let me tell you, babe, women have been welcome in our fandom since forever. Some of the earliest ones, if you go back to the beginning of fandom in the 1920s, 1930s, you're going to see women's names all over the place. In point of fact, the New York Futurians, right, they broke up over the fact that somebody was having an affair. Women were there. They have no problem expressing themselves, particularly today. There's half a jillion YouTube channels run by women who are expressing the hell out of themselves. Go straight to that Star Wars girl. Go straight to Jessie Milestone. And there's a woman who made her, entire reputation by really expressing herself. You're an idiot. You have no idea what you're talking to. You are probably half my age, if that. You have not been around long enough to know the deal. You're just a muckraker trying to screw things up. Is the Gamergate, is it Gamergate all over again? Yeah, kinda. Except this time they're zeroing in on Geeks and Gamers and the channels that are associated with them. She later said about these channels, quote, "Deplatform these people. They're dangerous and shouldn't have the amount of reach that they've been allowed." Later, also on Twitter, "Just once, I want to see the reach actually taken away for good. The fact that bullies get to keep their keyboards, I would say I don't understand why it happens, but we have to know that it happens." And then later, Does blocking/reporting/speaking out even make a difference? Doesn't seem so. And that's because she's been specifically trying to get Geeks and Gamers and associated channels deplatformed. She's been trying very hard. She's apparently got a freaking army of people, small army, like the woke tend to do. It says something of a small army who's going out and reporting everybody's videos and trying to get them taken down and trying to deplatform them for no reason. What happened, Meg, is you said something stupid. Really stupid. For me to say that is not bullying. It's me, as a 56-year-old secret master of fandom who's been around at this almost since the day he was born, telling you that you're completely full of crap. That's all. Nobody's bullying you. I'm telling you, you're full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. Now that's not bullying. Repeating back what she said on Twitter is not bullying. It's showing that she's an idiot who doesn't know what she's talking about. It's not bullying. But of course, she's woke. And this is the problem with the woke. I've said it before. They equate speech with violence. Therefore, any dissenting opinion from theirs is considered violence and must be stopped. It can be stopped with force if necessary. And that's why right now it hasn't reached the force part. It could. There's been people who've been physically attacked in the vanished space by woke people like her. But she thinks that them saying what I just did, which is that she is doing all she can to get them deplatformed over an issue that does not and has not ever existed. She thinks that is violence. My speech, my telling her this, my saying it to the world is violence. Well, it's not. It's me talking. It doesn't hurt you. You need to keep you should think of something that I heard all the time as someone who was actually bullied for liking science fiction when I was a child. And I mean actually bullied by human beings, not just by words on a screen from some relatively unknown stranger whom I will never meet. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We are words. We are not hurting you. We are words. You're just woke. You think our words are violence, and they're not. You're saying things that are totally untrue, and you have no background to say them. Well, I do. I've been doing this for 56 years. Practically since I was born, I've been doing this. Been active in fandom actively since 1974-ish. Women have been around all over the place. My God. Post Return of the Jedi, have you ever gone to any of these cons anywhere in the world and seen the cosplaying of the women who are wearing the slave Leia costume? There are always a couple of dozen of them there. You think that they aren't free to speak out? You think that it's men forcing them to wear that outfit? No. There are also cosplayers who wear all kinds of stuff. One of the coolest cosplayers I saw ever was a woman who was dressed as a unicorn, right? And she had 4 legs. It was an astonishing costume, and I wish I knew how she did it. I've got pictures. Should have put it up. She was free to speak her mind. Nobody was forcing her to walk around as a unicorn with 4 legs. Amazing. Just amazing. Amazing picture. And she was perfectly free. Nobody's forcing anybody to do anything. No male is saying, oh, you women have to wear those slave Leia costumes. No, they're doing it on their own. They are expressing themselves. You just might not like it. And for you, speech is violence and must be stopped if it doesn't agree with yours. Okay, Dropper 2 says, I like the background today. I'd like to build a log cabin like that myself. I always like to keep it on brand if I can. Dropper 2 says, you got mocked for your love of science fiction when you were young. Yep. Got my own back on the sports field. Well, I never got it back. I was just always bullied. I will never forget. There was one particular instance where I was out at a boys camp, just an overnight summer camp thing for the weekend that I did for Cub Scouts. And the batch that I got thrown in with spent all weekend calling me Spock. That was the least of it. That was the least of it. Physical beatings, Meg. That's what real bullying is, not just words. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, and you have no idea what you're talking about. I do. Ya moron. Leave us the hell alone. Get it through your head that they aren't hurting you with whatever their speech is. They're not hating on anyone. They're just having an opinion. And it doesn't have anything to do with women. Get it together. TGG, there are several of you females. So I didn't know you were female. So awesome, great. I have at least one female watching me. In fandom since forever. You've been a Star Trek fan since the 70s when you read the James Blish adaptations. I dare say that at least where I was, there were probably more women involved in fandom than men, at least in the Star Trek wing of things where I tended to be in the early 1970s, as you say. Yeah. Let me just think about it for a second, because the local science fiction fan club I went to, there were at least 4 women that I can think of off the top of my head. And that group still exists, by the way. It's called Starbase Andromeda. You can find a group for them on Facebook if you want. We still keep in touch. One of those women was somebody who did a lot of costumes. She still does a lot of costuming, a lot of artwork. Another one was a really fascinating one. I got a huge kick out of her. Meg, you'll love this. She was morbidly obese, but she went to a con once dressed as a giant tribble. She leveraged the fact that she knew she was very overweight and went to a con as a giant tribble. It's awesome. Awesome. Another one, I think it was 1980, she went to a con as V'ger from Star Trek the Motion Picture. Just a giant sort of cloud thing that she made. It was great. It was great. Nobody was telling her what to say or what to think. Nobody was saying, oh, you can't wear a costume. But she said to herself, well, I'm not going to go around, enslave Leia. That would look terrible on me. So she thought, what could I do? Oh, I know. A giant tribble. It'll be fun. Everybody loved that stuff. Nobody was telling her she couldn't do it. Meg. Tenenbaum, caught hands for being nerd. Absolutely. Didn't stop me. Yep. I remember fan production produced cons. Yep. Dragon Con is the last relic of that past. Absolutely. My first con was called, I think it was Rigel 5, I want to say, and it was run by a local science fiction club, Starbase Andromeda, that still exists today. I way preferred all those fan-run cons. They were a lot more fun. There were things there. Marshall will remember, I went to one once after I knew him, where B. Joe Trimble was speaking. She had some kind of small group of people. I don't remember what it was. But Marshall hadn't been able to get a hold of her for a while, so he gave me a message to give to her that she then gave me a reply to, and I replied to Marshall. That same one, Peter David was there. Peter A. David, who wrote a lot of Star Trek novels. And I got to sit and talk with him over drinks. There was one instance where Jimmy Doohan was a decent enough drinker, and I got to drink with him one time. The fan run cons tended to be a lot more fun. They did things like, I remember one, there was Dive-In Theater, where they were showing, old science fiction movies, horror movies mostly, like Creature from the Black Lagoon at the pool, and you could just sit around and drink and eat and watch the stuff. Dive-In Theater was one. There were filk singing panels and groups where it would be maybe 1 or 2 real filk singers like Leslie Fish or something like that. But then you could just sit there and sing your own filk songs. One occasion it was a little embarrassing watching a guy do it, but we didn't care. Anybody could do that. Women, men, didn't matter. I loved those fan run cons. I was always sorry to see it go and turn into the giant prepackaged junk like they do now. It's too bad. DGG says couldn't watch the show because TV service wasn't available where you grew up until the late 70s. Oh wow! So you read Star Trek first in the novels. That's pretty cool. I did it the other way around because, I gotta say, 1967, my first memory is of the Mugatu from A Private Little War. Drapatus, yeah, that was excellent. Drapatus says, Comic-Con today is a pale shadow of its early days. It's just a marketing tool. Oh, yeah, it's just marketing. I don't think, my kids went to it once. It wasn't with me. It was on a vacation with my ex that they went to it. And they brought me back some Jim Starlin art which I thought was pretty cool. But for the most part, I go to them and I just, whatever. I've been to a million dealers' rooms. They're all the same. The only thing that ever amused me about dealers' rooms was the first time I went to Anime Central. One of my kids is a huge anime fan. We went to Anime Central on more than one occasion with her sister and I think their cousin on one occasion. So we went to Anime Central, and the only thing that really surprised me, because of just lots and lots of merch, and I've seen it all before, was they had one booth that sold hentai. If you don't know what hentai is, it's hentai. Look it up. You'll be amused. Basically, it's cartoon characters having sex with a heavy emphasis on rape. And there was a whole booth, or large one, selling hentai. And it had a big sign, because it was right before Mother's Day. And it's a big sale for Mother's Day. My kids and I are like, yeah, we're going to get your mom hentai for Mother's Day. I thought that was hysterical. No problem with them selling that stuff because it's a thing. But it was just hysterical marketing it for Mother's Day. Yeah, your mom's going to really want to get some hentai. Absolutely. Our Tenemal says, I remember Star Trek versus Doctor Who fans, but it was all in good fun. Yeah, same thing with Star Wars and Star Trek. Nobody really gets into fights over that. I got to have a drink with Patrick Troughton. Oh, cool. And Fraser Hines at a time before the corporations. Yeah, that's cool. Like I say, the fan-run ones are just so much fun. And then the so-called superfans took over. Yeah, I remember the turning point was when creation conventions got into it. We always called them cretin cons. Because that's what we thought of them compared to the fan-run ones. But if you never went to a fan-run one in its heyday, you very much missed out. And Meg, lots of women there. Lots and lots of women. If you look, I picked them up from some group on Facebook. But there's a great 1967 shot from WorldCon of one of the costume contests. Because we didn't do what's called cosplaying back then. We just wore costumes. Didn't usually have characters and stuff that went along with it. Although, I do remember one Klingon guy way back when at the fan run cons who went around with the name Commander Crass. Crass, right? But we didn't really do cosplaying, but we did do lots of costume stuff. There's a 1967 one showing all the people doing Star Trek ones. I've got to say, 30% or more were women. You don't know what you're talking about, Meg. You have no idea. There is no problem in fandom with women and never, ever has been. I don't know a single woman who has been afraid to express her like or dislike about something in the entire time that I've been doing this. You're full of crap, Meg. So, that's pretty much all I have to say about Meg. Try to support the channels that she's trying to kill. They tend to, as I say, fall sort of under the geeks and gamers. That Star Wars girl is getting particularly rammed because this all started with her bitching about that Star Wars girl. So, subscribe to her channel, watch her videos. She's worth watching anyway. She's wonderful. She actually amazes me. Her first name's Anna, and she says that. Anna amazes me. Her sister passed away in horrific circumstances, truly horrific circumstances, about a year ago. And yet she can still pull it together. If my sister had died under the same circumstances, I would probably be a complete mess. I won't go over the circumstances, but it was truly horrific. And she can still pull it together, make videos, and be upbeat, and do a lot of artwork that she does, mostly Star Wars based, but she does a lot of artwork. Just a wonderful girl. Go and subscribe to that Star Wars girl on YouTube. She's great. I don't know if she's got something on Twitch, but if she does, I think she may for gaming. Let's subscribe to that. Wonderful girl. The quartering, there's a whole slew of them, and I couldn't even name off the top of my head. But the quartering is one that's getting hacked on by Meg and her little army of people going around and reporting videos for the speech that she doesn't like, having opinions that she doesn't like. But because she's woke, she equates speech with violence and must end any dissenting opinion. Meg, grow spine. Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Okay. I think that's all I'm going to say about the woke today. I've about had my fill with them. Got a video about it. There is no escaping the woke, that goes into a little more detail about some of the stuff that they do, but it's quite horrible. The woke suck. That Star Wars girl you're saying, Artanima, is a great gal. Yeah, she is. In addition to just being able to cope with loss like that, and that wasn't the only loss that she coped with in about a 1-year period. In addition to being able to cope with that, in addition to all the cool stuff she does, she has rolled a 10 on both beauty and charisma and adorableness. She has rolled a 10 where I have rolled a 1. So, she's just fun to watch. She's a wonderful girl. Do go, subscribe to that Star Wars girl. Great channel. She was the one where Meg started all this, and she's getting dumped on now. So, well, I'll tell you what, it's been about 2 hours, and I actually have some numbers here in terms of people watching me. Apparently, I've had 8 watching me on YouTube for once, and 2 on Twitch at least. So that's great. I could go on for another hour, but it'd be a little more difficult trying to find some good content. And in any case, what I've found generally is that when I have a live stream, the longer it is, the less approachable it is to watch after the fact on demand. And some of my views come out of that. So I will be streaming for the foreseeable future, both to Twitch and YouTube simultaneously. Unfortunately, I'm trying to see if there's a way that I can schedule these videos in such a way that I can get my restreaming software to go to scheduled streams with a URL. You can do that on the YouTube side, but I haven't seen how to do it on the Twitch side yet. So I will be streaming Twitch and YouTube simultaneously for the foreseeable future because YouTube sucks. And definitely check out my videos there. Check them out here on Twitch. I'm SYL Ranch here. I'm SYL Ranch on almost every, social media known to man. And you can find me. I like the way that my views go on BitChute.com. I am BitChute/SYL Ranch at BitChute.com/SYL Ranch over there. And my standalone videos go up there, and if they're short enough, because BitChute won't take them past a certain length, if they're short enough, I also post my live streams after the fact there. So definitely go over and watch those. Check me out. Check out Geeks and Gamers, the Quartering, and definitely that Star Wars girl. Go and support them because they are under attack right now from a woke schmuck who doesn't understand that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. So that's all I've got to say about that. I would love to keep the conversation going, so where there are comments, please leave them. And I will, you can leave your questions, comments, and nasty remarks, and I'll get back to you as best I can. You can also leave them on social media, and I'm on everything about as SYL Ranch, except for Twitter, where I'm SYL Tales, because they're stupid. And of course, if you can, if there's a place to do it on the platform you're watching this, like, share, hit the notification bell, and share me on social media. So thanks for watching this episode of Tales from SYL Ranch, where everyone is entitled to my opinion. And I'm Bill Stone.
Ultimate power in this world has always been one simple thing: the control and manipulation of minds.